Hello, hello. This is Matthew Craig, and this is my Sprint 1 retrospective. Jumping into it. There we go. We have, sorry, pardon the designer, and pardon that. This is our JIRA breakdown. So on the left here, we have our first sprint. So this is all the story points that we were attempting to get done. We have the random event structure, the map UI, the random event UI, the tree algorithm, the victory screen, the debug insta-kill, card creation, concept art creation for backgrounds, finish old map generation, convert old map generation to new format, and story event and structure and shell. This is our burn down chart. I'm not too sure why it looks like this. Might just be an artifact of our first sprint, so hopefully next one it actually looks like a burn down chart. But majority of our tasks were done as of this first sprint. However, we did have a couple that are carrying over. Mainly these ones. A lot of these were finished, so marked in the done category, but never actually merged into our main repository. So they are going to carry over despite the fact that they're basically done as far as the JIRA is concerned. However, they still need to be merged into our GitHub. So that is our JIRA breakdown. For the breakdown of labor, my role for the sprint one was mostly just the creativity side of it. So 70% of my time has gone towards creating new cards and thinking of new card concepts, as well as designing new cards for the wizard and knight classes. 30% of my time went towards creating the artwork that we're going to now get implemented into our game. Sorry about that. And then finally, our next sprint, which I'll go over a bit later, is going to be actually getting the cards I designed implemented into the game. So this sprint, unfortunately, no actual code for me to demonstrate. However, doesn't mean I don't have some cool stuff. So this is my hunter that I drew, and then also the knight that I drew. The knight has a bit more coloring to do. The sword hilt is probably actually going to remain black like this, but I want to color the handle a bit further. And then I need to add some details to the face, like eyes and mouth coloring and all that. But I'm really happy with how they're coming out so far. This was like a lot of time to draw these two. And then this is the Hunter class, which is a class that we're currently also designing cards for. But we have the basic deck for it implemented as well. Basically, they have like a spirit bow that they use. This was drawn by me using Clip Studio Paint, which is a very nice piece of software. Other thing I want to show is the cards I designed. I'll go through each one of those because I'm very proud and happy with how they came out. So, for the additional knights, I had like two design philosophies in mind. Basically, I had like the idea that they can either stack up a bunch of armor and do stuff with that, or they can go all in on like their different attacks and stuff. So, I have Ready Up, which gains 1 strength this turn. That basically increases the amount of damage that we deal. I wanted to give them some AoE, so the first one is Wide Slash. It deals 6 damage to all enemies. I have Flurry of Blades. So this one's cool because it uses up your remaining mana. So let's say you have like 3 mana this turn. You can use up all 3 in this one card, deal 15 damage to all enemies. But it's also good if you only have 1 mana left because you'll do 5 damage to all enemies. The design philosophy behind this card was that I wanted it to be weaker in the base compared to Wide Slash, so it does slightly less damage. However, it has more utility because if you need a card that costs 3 because you have nothing else, then this card can do that. We have Quick Slash, deal 4 damage and draw a card. This is kind of like, I realized the Knight didn't have a lot of card draw mechanics built into their class, and so I wanted to give them some way to do some card draw, so that's why I created Quick Slash. Twin Slash deals 4 damage twice to an enemy. This is ideally used against enemies that kind of like block hits or dodge hits as a way to kind of get around that. This is Hemorrhage, basically deal this massive strike that applies bleed, and bleed does damage over time for the rest of the fight. And then it does just a huge amount of damage. I wanted to give the knight some like really big hitting cards instead of just mostly defensive ones. Lock In is similar to our Ready Up, but it's 2 strength for 2 turns. But this one has a cost of 1 instead of 0. This is a card that I'm actually really happy with. It's called Final Gambit. The idea behind it was that if you're willing to get your knight to low HP, then you get this card once per battle that's really strong, right? It deals 50 damage, but you have to be low HP, you have to draw it, and then you have to survive after casting it. And so it's tough. It is ideally a tough card to play, but if you manage to get it off, massive value. So it's like ideally like a situational card. We have Blood Fury. Sorry, it exhausts all non-attack cards in our hand. So basically, the idea was like we're gonna go all in on offense. So get rid of all of our blocks, get rid of all that, and we're gonna deal a bunch of AOE to our opponent for doing so. Heavy Slam. So this is the more of like the defensive side of the cards. I wanted to go more defensive. Basically, Heavy Slam is dealing damage equal to the number of, like, amount of armor. So the idea behind this card is that you stack a bunch of armor, you get like 15, 16 block, and you hit an enemy for that amount. Armor Up is just a very simple gain to armor. Brace for Impact is more card draw for the Knight class. You gain 8 armor and draw 1 card. I think may have to nerf the number to like 6, because Armor Up getting 10 and then sacrificing 2 armor for 1 card draw seems a bit disproportionate. Because card draw in games is often very, very, very strong. Armor for Days is double your armor. I designed this one with Heavy Slam in mind, so that you would like get a bunch of armor and then double it and then double it and then slam them for like a massive amount of damage. I thought that would be kind of fun to pull off. And then Yoink, this is a super situational card. I might even make it 0 cost, because I mean the odds of enemies having armor is probably fairly low. But when it works, it works. So I might actually do some live patching here and make that 0 cost. Finally, for wizard cards, I have just a couple ones that augment their spells so far. So Double Up is casting our next card twice. Charge Spell is our card to deal damage. So the idea is like I wanted to add like combos to the wizard class, because wizards always felt to me like you want to get like sort of spell combos off, and when you pull them off, they should like pop off pretty big. So the idea of here is that like you get your next card to deal double damage, and then it casts twice upon an enemy. And we have a couple here that can add to your combo too. So we have added next spell that you cast your hand. So essentially, it's like if you play like your big spell, you now get a copy of it. We have Replicate, which is it's similar, but this one is replicating the lowest cost spell in your hand. So if you want to cast like a Quick Bolt or something, you can do that twice, and then it costs 0, so you don't have to worry about the mana cost of it. And then finally, Meditation. I'm not sure if this card is really good or really bad yet. The idea behind it was that we're sort of sacrificing our play this turn to have a really big play next turn. So you hold onto your hand, so you hold onto your 5 cards. Then you also basically double your mana for next turn, and then you get a little bit of survivability in the form of 5 armor. So you get you're not going to like instantly blow up basically, and then you get a really strong next turn in exchange for essentially giving up your entire turn this time. I'll have to try it in game. I think it's going to be strong. The idea behind all these collectible cards is that they're pretty good. We want them to be stronger than the base cards, because we want to give players an actual incentive for wanting to add cards to their deck. So that's why these might feel a bit on the stronger side. So that's what I was doing this first sprint pack. Finally, this is our next sprint. Essentially, in the next sprint, I am dedicated to continuing the art, designing more cards, and then also getting the cards that I've designed into the game engine. It should take me like 2 hours maybe to get all the cards I've designed so far. So I do need to dedicate some time to actually getting them in. Overall, just mostly creativity stuff for me this week. I'm going to show this again. I'm really proud of how my art came out. I'm really happy with how the hunter looks. I think it looks pretty cool. This effect here was also pretty fun to design and figure out. But anyway, that's all I got. So thank you.